Good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome as people join in through the virtual waiting room. We have around 50 people signed up for this afternoon's session. So we shall just give you a few minutes to make your way in through the door, get comfortable. While you're settling in, if you want to find the chat and come and say hello to us in the group chat, let us know where you're joining from this afternoon. Maybe let us know if we've worked together before. Perhaps you've been on a workshop in the workplace, or you've joined one of our previous free tasters. Maybe let us know a little bit about why you might be interested in Study Ninja particularly, which is our session this afternoon. So we will get going with formal introductions and all that stuff in a couple of minutes, but just a minute or so to gather, make yourself comfortable, get settled in. It's too late to run to the kettle or the biscuit barrel or grab a sandwich now, I'm afraid. But, you know, we're only
Unless
here for 40
you happen to be working in your kitchen.
Yes. How far can you reach off frame? Can you get into the fridge or into the snacks cupboard from where you're sitting? That will be the kind of thing that we're interested in. So head to the chat. When you're sending us a chat message, make sure that you are sending your message so it comes through to everyone, which means everyone will be able to hear and take benefit of your contributions. And the way you do that is there's a little drop-down message next to the little to field where you're typing in a chat message, and that'll make sure it comes through to all of us. And the other thing that you'll find is rather than seeing the Zoom chat coming up in the little bubble at the bottom of the screen, it's really useful if you can actually click that bubble and open up the chat stream in a full panel, and then you'll be able to see exactly what everybody else is saying. So we've got hello from Haley, our colleague, giving us moral support in the background. Thank you, Haley. Samantha, about to start a part-time MSc at the same time as work. Yes, we'll be opening in one of our kickoff activities, asking people to share what their different study challenges are as well. We've got Lucy from Lancaster University, one of your clients there, Grace.
Hi, Lucy.
Been to workshops with Grace in previous professional career, now a third-year PhD student. I love that that shows that there are people who have been with us, alongside us, and doing things with us over a number of years as well. And we've got hello here from Rebecca, based in Bedford. Heard Grace previously at a Lucidity Network event. I have no idea what Lucidity Network is, Grace, but it sounds great. Doing a part-time distance learning master's as well. So lots and lots of things to do. So thank you for that. We're just going to wait 30 more seconds and then we're going to dive in. It's like all your groupies have turned up this afternoon, Grace. Like everyone has said that they're here because they've worked with you before. If there's anyone on the call who's worked with me before, I would love a little bit of moral support as well. I can recognize a few names in the attendee list, so I know that there's some people that I have crossed paths with as well. What do we call Grace groupies? I think we just call them Grace groupies. It's already alliterative, isn't it? There you go. So we've got Joanna as well from Newbury, working full-time, juggling teenagers, sometimes literally perhaps, and doing a Charter Management Institute level 7 as well. So some interesting, serious bits of professional study going on this afternoon. Anyway, we shall kick off. People can still join us as we get moving. So welcome formally. Some of you have met us before, particularly the Grace groupies. But if you've not worked with us before, you're here this afternoon for a little taster workshop, a free taster workshop from Think Productive. Think Productive, we are a niche training and coaching company based in the UK. We've been going for nearly 12 years now. And both Grace and I are members of the training team at Think Productive. And if we were meeting you in more normal times and we were able to pass you a business card, you would see that our trainers actually have this unusual name of productivity ninjas, named after the book of the workshop. So some of you that have worked with us before may have indeed encountered the How to Be a Productivity Ninja book. What do Grace and I do as we're traveling the country? Well, physically in the before times, but these days we travel virtually. We help organizations and people in all sorts of settings, whether that's workplace or study settings like today, look at two things. You can guess already from the name of the company and the trainers and some of our workshops that we're interested in work. How do we get our stuff done with our skills, our talents, and our energy? But we're equally interested in something else that dances together with that. And that other thing has different names. Sometimes it's called well-being, work-life balance, stress management. Sometimes in the quiet thoughts in the back of our head, we call it having a life. And all of our sessions, whether they're short ones like today, or they're longer half day or full day sessions in your organization or in your learning institution, we're looking at the balance between those two. So some of you who've encountered us before, more in that kind of workplace training setting, might be going like, well, what's this Study Ninja thing like? Well, both Grace and I work with quite a lot of different universities. We've done workshops in schools, in FE colleges. I think both of us have worked in business schools supporting MBA candidates and CMI candidates. And what we noticed quite early on in the history of Think Productive is that some of the stuff that we were sharing in workplaces was actually really helpful for those people who were undertaking some of that kind of serious, strategic, chunky bits of learning, sometimes on their own, sometimes full time, and sometimes in combination with or alongside other things like work and family and all those kind of good things as well. So a couple of years into the history of Think Productive, Graham thought that we would deploy the ninjas in another way and in another universe, and to try and provide help in that setting as well. So those of you who've read the How to Be a Productivity Ninja book, there is another book that you can get hold of, which is the Study Ninja book. And today's little short taster session, this is part of our ongoing monthly series of free tasters. You may have been on some of them before. Today's session is really just giving you a little bit of a glimpse as to what that work looks like as a workshop. So you might be here as a learner, somebody who is taking on or in the middle of a piece of professional learning or recreational learning yourself. You might be here from an institution, from a learning organization, saying, what, we've worked with Think Productive before for staff training. What could it be like to maybe bring in some of this workshop to our learners as well? So those of you who've worked with us before might be familiar with our 9 characteristics of the Productivity Ninja. But what we're going to give you a quick tour of today is the 9 characteristics of the Study Ninja. So extra points, and my colleagues Hayley and Grace might want to help out, but extra points, if you've been on the Productivity Ninja workshop before, can you spot which of these ninjas are new and unique to Study Ninja? Or can you spot which of the traditional 9 ninjas that we would use in workplace training are missing? I'm relying on you, Hayley, to be super quick on the keyboard as a fellow trained productivity ninja. Do you want to have a guess, Grace? Which ones look new?
Joanne's got it there.
Too
Balance
quick.
And focus.
Yes. So those of you who've worked with us before will notice there are 2 new ninjas here, balance and focus. And the ones that we haven't included in the 9 today, although I reckon they're still very, very useful for an aspiring study ninja, are unorthodoxy and agility. So what are these 9 characteristics about? They're just a way of thinking. They're a framework for exploring the different mindsets, habits, tactics, hacks, tools that might be able to help us improve things either in our work or in our well-being, particularly when it comes to this study focus that we're talking about today. So what we're going to do is just have a quick think about these 9 ninjas in little groups of 3. And then at the end of each group of 3, I'm going to invite you to take an opportunity to think about specific things you might implement from today's workshop inspired by those 3 ninjas. It might be something you're going to try implement a new habit. It might be an existing thing that you need to nudge in another direction, or it might be something that you're realizing now isn't particularly helpful and you need to stop or replace with another behavior. So the first one is Balance Ninja. You can see our ninja friend there, precariously balanced on the edge of the nail. What balance is going to look like for you is going to depend on what kind of learning that you are doing. That's why I asked in the open if you could let us know what kind of learning you're undertaking or about to take on. Again, if you haven't shared that yet, please feel free to put it in the chat. And the learning might be the substantial focus of what you need to pull off in the coming year, but it might be only part of the things that you're looking at. You might, as we've seen, have work alongside it. You might have family and community activities. You might have your own hobbies. You might occasionally want to sleep or go for a jog or something like that as well. So getting that balance is really inviting you to sort of have a good think about what are the different components of my life in the coming year that I need to and will want to share myself over. And how am I going to create the structure and the scaffolding in order to make sure that the right amount of me is deployed onto these different things in the right proportion. Because one of the ways balance could go wrong, you can see our ninja friend precariously there tottering on the edge, is either you do too much of one of these things or you don't do enough of one of these things. So, not being able to fit in enough study alongside your other commitments, or maybe you're doing too much of those things like work and study, and you're not leaving enough space for your well-being and self-care as well. So ways that Graham talks about in the book to do that is to think about like rationing, but also ratios. How can you keep an eye on and monitor the amount of you that's being spent on these different key activities? And he has this fun idea of fun points where you can kind of create yourself a bit of a token economy to make sure, yes, I get this amount of well-being in return for this amount of work. Or maybe you could run your token system the other way around, depending on which you want to leverage in which direction. But all of these ideas in balance is about saying, I have these different things that I need to attend to, and there's going to be different parts of my day and my week and my term where I need to be able to effectively bring one of those activities into focus, into the front line, into clarity. And that's going to mean, for instance, pushing back some of those activities into the background as well. So this idea of switching modes is something that we'll certainly come to a lot more under some of the other ninjas. So at a strategic level, we're looking for an effective balance so we can pull off what it is that we're trying to do. But when we're in one of those individual modes, the other ninja characteristic that really will be beneficial is learning how to nurture our Zen-like calm. And those of you who've been on one of our workplace sessions will know that we actually kick off the 9 characteristics of the productivity ninja with Zen-like calm ninja. Because often that's one that people are most looking for. So I'd love you to put into the group chat like your description of what Zen-like calm feels like to you when it comes to work and well-being. Maybe let us know what you do in order to kind of create, nurture, or protect that experience. Or maybe let us know what are some of the things that make it elusive or trip it up or make it difficult. So people would say that Zen-like calm is about that sense of control, like having a plan. It doesn't mean that you've got nothing to do. It might mean that you've got quite a lot on, but you've actually got a way of making the decisions about what to do in what order. Some people talk about it's about having the right emotional state, the right physical state, the right environment. What else have I missed out, Grace, in terms of what contributes to people's Zen-like calm?
Well, I think there's lots of jugglers in the room today. So I think there's something about, that feeling of I can focus on this one plate and I know the other plates will carry on spinning. I think there's something about that as well.
So the other 2 things I just want to highlight in Zen-like calm, and again, those of you who want to check out some of the resources after the workshop will be able to go deeper into this particular one, is there's 2 real prime enemies of Zen-like calm. And I think these ones are particularly prevalent in your sort of study ninja efforts. So one enemy we talk about quite a lot on in our workplace training is the noise and the interruption and the distraction. And sometimes we have conversations about external noise and interruption and distraction, which we're certainly going to do in a minute under a couple of other study ninjas. But often it's about the internal noise, that feeling of like, oh, there's so much to do, but none of them feel tasty, so I'll just procrastinate for a bit longer. Or that inability to focus on one set of thoughts because another set of thoughts is creeping in and interrupting. And then the other little note I'd like to put in about Zen-like calm ninja is again something that's explored a lot more in both of the books, which is that whether you're a knowledge worker in a workplace or whether you're pursuing study in an academic setting, you're going to have 2 different modes that you are as Grace says, juggling or balancing, you're going to have the boss mode and the worker mode. And this is named after the work of the organizational psychologist Peter Drucker. So there's the doing, there's the execution, there's the writing, there's the reading, but there's also going to be the boss mode component to your Study Ninja efforts, which is kind of the planning, the working out how you're going to get all the bits together with the assignment, maybe working together with your study group buddies, and all the sort of traffic control and the decision making that comes with a successful program study as well. I'm just going to share one more ninja, which is Ruthlessness Ninja, and then we're going to invite you to do the first little bit of action planning. Haven't seen any new contributions in the chat for a while, so do please keep them coming if you have a thought or a perspective on any of this. Ruthlessness Ninja is one that you either know in your heart that you're good at it, or you know in your heart that you're not. Whenever we put the next slide up on the screen in the workplace, I always kind of look around to see whether or not this provocative truth is like landing softly or whether it's landing hardly. There you go. Gosh, who knew that? You can't actually do everything. Sometimes, Grace, I don't know about you, but sometimes the person who's commissioned our workshop is in the back of the room. When you put this slide up on the screen, I always just check to see whether they've got this look of horror on their face going like, hang on, I brought these people in to get my people to do more stuff. And now they're telling them they can't do everything. So Ruthlessness Ninja isn't about not having an enthusiasm or a passion for your work or for your studies. You wouldn't have taken on these big pieces of work or study if you didn't have a passion for it. I was working with some postgraduate researchers in a university last week. They were very, very passionate about their particular area of research. But they also know that their capacity to do all this stuff in a way that's happy, healthy, and sustainable is, as an issue of fact, finite. And that means that you might need to nurture in a loving way your ninja ruthlessness and just get a little bit better sometimes at saying no to things. And that might be saying no to other people that are asking you for things, or it might occasionally mean being a little bit better at saying no to yourself. So I don't know whether anyone's ever struggled with procrastination, but procrastination is at the core of my 30-year story about why I now do this very weird thing for a living. So sometimes a bit of loving self-ruthlessness could be really good for this particular one. And again, in the sort of more traditional study skills part of the Study Ninja book, Graham talks about lots of different tactics and strategies for dealing with procrastination. He introduces the dust model, which is that if there's something you really can't bring yourself to do, then maybe you need to sprinkle it with a little bit of Study Ninja dust. And that's about looking around whether you're resisting it because it's too difficult, it's too undefined, it's too scary, or it's too tedious. And depending on which of those it might be, you might come up with different strategies or tactics to try and nudge that task in a slightly more delectable and tasty manner. So we got to our first little bit of action planning. Grace, I'm going to invite you to add any of your own perspectives on those first three ninjas, things that you wish I had said. But what I would love you all to do is just head now to the group chat and add in for any or all of those three ninjas, something you've decided now that you're going to start doing, stop doing, or you're going to continue and grow doing that could make things better for you.
Yeah, I think I'd say that procrastination is a very human thing. We all do it. And I think the key is noticing when we do and paying attention to it and then figuring out, okay, like you say, why am I procrastinating? And then I can do something about it rather than just going, well, procrastination is trying to pull your attention away from the thing, isn't it? It's trying to pull your attention towards anything that's a welcome distraction. Whereas by doing something like that kind of detective work of going, okay, so let's use dust, let's diagnose what's going on here. It's forcing you to pay attention to what it is, but also to demystify it. And so that we can come up with a reason for it. The other thing I really liked was at the beginning when you talked about balance and the idea that it's our own definition of success that counts. Because I think this also ties in with ruthlessness, because if we start thinking, but I could do this and I could do that, it's like being all things to all people, as well as trying to get everything done. That definition of success is just way too big. And I think we can sometimes fall into that, especially those of us who maybe have a perfectionist tendency.
I really connected to that one because I've had two very different, and Rajendra, I love your thing about focusing on silencing the internal noise. That's definitely one we're going to look at under focus as well. I had two very, very different experiences of higher education level study. I went to university to do undergraduate straight after school, and it was an absolute disaster. And I was invited to no longer be at two different universities, however you want to phrase it, because I hadn't really decided that's what I wanted to do. I'd just done it because that was what was expected. I returned to higher education study, indeed master's level study, in my mid to late 30s when I did my teacher training. And I had a completely different set of motivators and reasons, but I also had a completely different set of lifestyle situations as well. So I really needed to leverage those particular three as well during that. And, I got my PGCE, and now I do teacher and teacher training for a living. So it's good stuff. And Antoinette there, having this idea of what successful looks like. And as Grace says, this sort of good enough is good enough might be something you need to become a little bit more comfortable with, particularly if you've got work and family and study going on all at the same time. So let's do another three. We're only here for 45 minutes together. So this is very much a taster of what would normally be a 90-minute or a 2-hour workshop. If you're here from a learning institution and you want to know a little bit more about what the full workshop looks like, we're going to let you know how to do that at the end. So weapon savvy is one of our favorite ninjas. It's about like, what's the place for all the tools and the tech and the apps and the gadgets? And like, more importantly, how can we use stuff in a way that's helpful rather than sometimes these things being the things that get in the way? So throughout this section, I'd love to hear in the chat, like, have you got a favorite app on your tablet or your smartphone? Or have you got a favorite software plugin or specialist piece of weapon savvy ninjery? Have you got like an amazing set of email filters or an amazing Google Sheets system that's part of your kind of weapon savvy kit bag? They don't all have to be stuff that you connect to the Wi-Fi or download from the app stores or charge. So maybe your favorite tools for getting stuff done or tending to your well-being might be more analog. Maybe it's about the joy of noise cancelling headphones, or perhaps you love a good bullet journal or something like that as well. Post-it giving a vote for Lucy giving a vote for Post-it notes. Now I know, but I've immediately forgotten, Grace. 3M are your client. There's a very specific way you have to refer to that particular item of stationery.
It's definitely Post-it notes. Yes.
Right. Okay. Not
so
Post-its.
Lucy's got it right.
That's the off-brand stuff. There you go. And the idea is pick like a reasonably restricted, trusted set of tools, learn how to use them really, really well. So Rebecca there using an app called Focus Tree, and perhaps using an app for the Pomodoro Technique, something that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But not let those things proliferate, and particularly don't let them get in the way. So we all have our favorite ones for different particular things. I'm quite a fan of all of those apps that you put on your phone that help you spend less time on your phone. So things like Freedom and Off Time, Quality Time, and Forest. They can be particularly good if you're trying to carve out in that balanced kind of way some respite from the digital distraction that just seems to be part of the way our world is built at the moment. Although not last night, because it all fell over for several hours and we got some lovely peace and quiet. Those of you watching the YouTube recording of this in the future, we had the great Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram outage of 2021 last night, and we're all just recovering. You may have noticed that there was a few apps on the screen there on the little tablet, things like Trello and Nozbe and Todoist, that were kind of part of a special category of weapon savviness that we call second brains. So we teach this on our full day How to Be a Productivity Ninja course. If you've ever felt a little bit overloaded by your to-dos, or you're now feeling especially overloaded by your to-dos because you suddenly have a whole university level set of to-dos as well. In the book, How to Be a Productivity Ninja, and on our full day course, we talk about the idea of getting a second brain to help your overloaded, distracted first brain to hold and manipulate all that stuff. And again, if you're interested in more about how I would choose a second brain that suits me, how I would implement one, and how I can kind of create it into my workflow or my Study Ninja system. There's loads of resources available after the session to allow you to look deeper into that particular kind of weapon savvy. One particular payoff of those, if you've ever felt a little bit overloaded by either your mental or your paper-based to-do list, one of the great things about a second brain is it starts to introduce a different texture in your task wrangling. It allows you to have a sort of higher level boss mode kind of project list planning style, and a more tactical worker mode kind of cherries on cakes action style as well. And that can really sometimes be at the center of taking out the heat of your kind of task overload as well. I want to talk a little bit more about focus and then stealth and camouflage, and then we'll have our next little bit of action planning. Focus is about saying, right, I have picked a thing and my systems have told me what it is I need to be doing. I just need to crack on and get doing it. But like, that's hard. It's hard because there's lots of things out there in the world that are trying to take away our attention and interrupt and distract us. You know, you don't have to wait more than 30 seconds these days before some kind of device pings at you and raw willpower is weak. You know, you could be going, oh, I really must write the introduction to this assignment. And then suddenly your phone goes off and goes, ping, oh, shiny, who loves me? But realizing that your attention supply kind of is finite, and you might experience different qualities and modes of attention in different parts of the day as well. So if you're thinking about how you're designing your study timetable around your work timetable, around other parts of your endeavors, thinking about when's my kind of really on fire, high energy supply attention, and there might only be a few hours of that a day or a week. When am I kind of still getting things done, but like it's a little bit harder, the active attention? And kind of when really have I run out of steam, and actually might it be better to start putting in things like the recreation and the rest and the hobbies and the family time as well. So designing around your attention menu could be really, really important. And then when you are in one of those sort of production mode, we need to get it done things, unplugging from all those digital distractions, putting some restrictions around your connectivity. How can you create the kind of bubble of attention where you can just, you know, you can get some amazing stuff done in just a couple of hours if you can just push the rest of the world, both the external world and the internal world, aside a little bit. And then a little bit of a word about this other word that comes into our realm. Grace and I always have to sort of take a big deep breath in a workshop when anybody says, so what do you think about multitasking then? My usual answer at the moment is I'm prepared to admit that we all find ourselves trying it. But I'm also thinking that some of my best days were the days where I just picked one thing and I created a bubble where I could just get one thing done with my full attention and focus for an hour. And then I got to tick something off as done. Like we all know what the endorphin buzz of ticking something off is, because a lot of you on the session today will have written something down on your to-do list that you've actually already done, just so you can give yourself one of those bonus ticks. Extra points in the chat if you confess that is you. So if you're that kind of person that's shutting down your workstation or your machine at the end of the day, and you're kind of saving files and you're clicking closed applications, and as all those windows start to sort of pop out of existence, and you find down at the bottom on your computer desktop wallpaper that email that you started in draft at 9:05 this morning, maybe some of your actions in the next round could be around how can I create a less flit and more focus, which is what a lot of people are doing. So lots of really practical techniques to doing that. A couple of our favorites that probably many of you have heard before, a couple of them had a mention in the chat already. They're favorites because they work. Okay, so the Pomodoro Technique, Francis Cirillo invented it, picked his tomato timer off the kitchen shelf one day. Pomodoro is Italian for tomato, and he just set it for 25 minutes and he say, right, I'm just going to work on this thing for 25 minutes and I'm not allowed to stop, and I'm not allowed to change task, and I'm not allowed to go and check the emails or talk to anyone. And he's created this whole system. You can go on his website and buy Pomodoro Technique t-shirts and all sorts of things. But the basic idea is it's about working in exclusive 25-minute attention dashes, and then having a break to get up and stretch and process your emails or go and talk to the cat or something like that. Can be really, really good, and particularly good in a study kind of context as well. And then my other favorite, Eat the Frog, is just like the top level weapon when you've got something that's been super, super procrastinated and you just can't bring yourself to do it. And in fact, you're kind of hoping that your tutor or your supervisor or your boss has forgotten about it. And it comes from a quote by Mark Twain, I believe, which is like, if you had to eat a live frog, it'd be absolutely horrible. But boy, once you'd got it over with, it would feel better in comparison. So it's the kind of worst thing first of your working day or your study day is the kind of advice there. So I just want to add a little bit on stealth and camouflage, and then Grace is going to provide her perspective. I'm not going to ask you what JFDI stands for, but I think we all know. If you don't know, email Grace afterwards. She will tell you. So stealth and camouflage, just really bringing together some of the things that we've talked about, that you just need to get away from the world sometimes. So when we're going into workplaces, or when we did go into workplaces in the before times, we used to talk about physical stealth and camouflage, about how important it is to find ways to get things done successfully when other people are around. And certainly in the last year and a half, when Grace and I have been supporting people with remote working or home working, the physical stealth and camouflage tactics are still in play. How do I create that little piece of island of peace when small people are around, or other adults are around, or in-laws are now dropping around because they've had their booster shots and they can do that kind of stuff. And for those of you going back on campus as well, there might be an interesting way of playing with kind of slightly backstage, slightly hidden, slightly squirreled away versus the kind of connective study group kind of social aspect of being on campus as well. We've done quite a lot of workshops for university student unions or student guilds. And some of the participants on those workshops are always the sabbatical officers. So, they're doing a full-time thing where they're serving in the university. But occasionally they want to break because like their faces are known. And I spoke to one student president who did admit to walking around campus in an actual disguise if she wanted a break for a couple of hours, rather than people coming up to her and going, "Hey, you're the prez. I've got an issue that needs dealing with," and stuff like that. And then what will definitely be a big one for those of you who are combining work with study, or even just life with study, really racking up your digital stealth and camouflage. I don't want to be hearing or getting work emails or messages while I'm in my study day, or vice versa. Putting your phones onto do not disturb or silent or something like that as well. Really learning how you can use all the different modes in all those different tools to get the right amount of connectivity, but also to get the right amount of peace as well. So Grace, your thoughts on these three, whilst I invite people to head to the chat and put their own stop, starts and continues in for these three?
Yeah, I feel like the multitasking slide needs to have like a massive health warning on it. Because the whole thing of like, yeah, we can be tempted to do it. And yeah, we will sometimes fall into the like, oh yeah, it would just be more fun to like flit around and play with stuff. But it's like, it does have a massive health warning on it. It was interesting when you were talking about it. I thought, yeah, the difference between focus and flitting is that flitting then can very easily turn into faffing.
I love it. You've added an extra F. I'm stealing that bit of patter.
So yeah, and particularly I think that combined with the procrastination, it's that combined with if I'm working on something that is hard to sink into, hard to really get my focus in, and I've got like all the different tabs open, the different notifications, that's when I'm far more likely to get distracted. Because it's far easier to get that ping, that dopamine hit of like, oh, I'll just answer that email because that's an easy question, compared to I've got to figure out what I'm doing with this essay or this.
And these things are designed to be addictive. I mean, I actually had some pretty good digital stealth and camouflage going on, but I made a mistake over the weekend, which is I installed a game on my phone over the weekend. So it's like, I'll chill out on a Sunday. I'm going to put SimCity Build It on my phone. Oh my God, that thing is addictive. I've had to go in and talk to Off Time, which is my app blocker, and say, Lee is not allowed to play SimCity Build It outside of these recreational hours.
I had a conversation with a client this week, actually, where we suggested rearranging all the apps on his phone so that the first screen has the stuff that he actually wants to use, the welcome stuff. And maybe the second screen is like, here's the stuff I want to use sometimes, and I'll go and find it when I want to. And the third screen is like the stuff I actually don't want to see, but for any reason I still have to have on my phone.
Yeah, and you could have a home screen for work, a home screen for family, a home screen for study and learning as well,
Yeah.
to have all the different apps grouped that way.
Mm.
Love it. Okay, so we have 3 more to go in the final 10 minutes, because we are advertised as 45-minute workshop, and we will have you over here in the 45 minutes, but I'll let you into a secret. A lot of these free tasters tend to end up in a little informal after show. So if you're keen to hang around after the 45 minutes is up, Grace and I are very happy to stay probably till about 3, because after that, small people will start arriving home from school. So Mindfulness Ninja, like this might be the one that you immediately go, oh, I know what that one is. And to some extent, it is that one. We are fans. We think there's a lot in it. There's a lot in it that helps workflow. There's a lot in it that helps well-being. And again, if those of you use part of this as your kit bag, you've got a favorite app like Buddhify or Headspace that you use, we'd love to hear about it in the chat. But we also know that some people have tried this and it either didn't stick or they kind of worked out that it wasn't for them. So our recommendation in that case is find the thing that is for you. And it's been really interesting working with people through lockdown as people have taken up different hobbies, or there's new opportunities for exercise in different parts of the day that normally wouldn't have been possible. People have taken up crafts, gardening, sport, all sorts of stuff. You might think, oh, well, I've got a job and I've got life and I'm taking on uni. I don't have time for a hobby. Like, you really do need to have time for something that is just for you. We'll be talking about that in Human Not Superhero in a few minutes. These can be the points where you just switch your brain off, and that's the opportunity to be reflective, creative, solve a problem. Really, really important part of the kind of sort of brain work that is going to be part of your study. And then 2 other aspects of mindfulness, this idea of perspective and reflection and oversight, thinking and talking as much about how things are going rather than just thinking and talking about what you are doing, or usually what you haven't done as well, can be really important. That's an advice we share in the workplaces as well as in this session. And then building opportunities in for perspective. Some of you might be taking on a qualification that's going to take 3 years. My teacher training took 6 years part-time. And it's very, very easy to get caught in the near time horizon of the next assignment or the next assessment, and to not really think about the long game, both like where we have come from and how far we've come, but also to pause and celebrate that, and to then think about where we're going next as well. So mindfulness is a slightly wider ninja characteristic, involves that aspect of insight, self-monitoring, and perspective as well. Preparedness. Those of you like going stationery shopping will be all over ninja preparedness. You can tell a preparedness person's desk and files and binders and notes because they're just all multicolored and highlighter pen action. The rest of us might not be so good at that. So I'd invite you to think about the last time you watched one of those shows on the TV where it was a glimpse behind the curtain of a pro level kitchen. So I like MasterChef, not like Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. Like, there's that concept in the culinary arts, mise en place, which is how you lay everything out in a pro kitchen, how you get all the ingredients ready, how you look after all the equipment and keep it updated and cleaned. We could pull that into our study kind of thing as well. So, have you got all the right software? Have you got all the right kit? Have you ordered all the right books? Do you have access to all the right websites? Have you set up the right kind of workspace or study space, either in your home or wherever it is you're going to go and do some of this stuff? How the work will go will be a very big function of the setup, is the message that we're talking there. But ninja preparedness is slightly wider than just having the right hole punches and and the right software. It could be about putting in place some of all these other characteristics that we talked about on today's session. I've shared that I had one very unsuccessful experience of higher education, and then I had one quite successful experience of higher education. I got a few distinctions on some of my assignments. I don't think my academic abilities changed at all between my attempt in my early 20s and my attempt in my late 30s. I think what changed was some of this sort of ninja style life management that we're talking about today as well. So yes, you might know how to take notes, you might know how to write an essay, but probably your abilities with that is going to be enhanced by wrapping around some of the stuff that we've talked about today. And then my last little ninja is going to be human, not superhero. So how do we link that to preparedness? It's about realizing that sometimes the most productive and creative and profitable thing that you can do is to do nothing. Okay. But unfortunately, doing nothing is a dying art. And as the art of doing nothing is dying out, people are losing sight sometimes of their human, not superhero. So when Grace and I go into workplaces, if we're having to have a conversation with an organization where they say, we'd like you to come in and make our people do more work, it's like both of us are like going, that's not what this is about. Okay. What we do, whether we're working in workplaces or we work with people in learning like today, is giving you some skills and ideas and some tactics that will allow you to do the great things that you're passionate about and capable about, but do it in a way that's human, not superhero. So we all have days where we're tired, distracted, overwhelmed, where we don't know what to do, where we need help, where we need a hug, where we've messed up and we need forgiveness. Sometimes we're going to have put our superhero pants in the white wash, and that is okay. I remember the first time I ever had to ask for an extension on an assignment in my teacher training. I was like, I have failed. This is the end. And like my tutor went, no, like everyone on this course is an adult learner. They've all got other stuff going on in their life. Extension procedures exist for a reason. Here's another 2 weeks. And like that conversation was just so much easier. And then in your human, not superhero, think about your fueling. So not just your sort of tactical fueling around breaks and sleep and nutrition and hydration, you know, all the things that my nan goes on about. I hate it when my nan is right, but like she's so right. But also think about your deeper fuel in the long term as well. So, you know, what are you giving yourself that's just for you? You know, you might be allocating what used to be large sections of your free time to this big study project. Don't make the mistake of ditching completely the thing that gives you that deep fuel, that emotional fuel, that mental fuel, that physical fuel as well. And keep that as part of your overall approach to getting that right balance, which is what we talked about at the beginning of the workshop. So Grace, any comments on those three whilst we invite people to put their own stop, start and continues inspired by those three ninjas in the chat?
Yeah, definitely. I think the phrase that went through my head is your brain on a good day. And you know, the kind of, when we talk about this in the work setting, we talk about how most of us are knowledge workers, so we do our best work when we can do our best thinking. I think that's particularly true for study, because actually it is all about your thinking, and so it is all about what's going on in your brain. So I think these are all different tactics and techniques that help us to have our brain on a good day more often. And then from there to, we'll be able to do our best work, to be able to do our best thinking.
Fantastic. So have a little look at the notes that you've made during the session. We've done this super fast, like the shortest version of the workshop that we do when we're actually commissioned to do this is 90 minutes. Quite often we relax it out to 2 hours, but I'm hoping that's a taster of the 9 ninjas for you. And just a little bit of an idea how you could take some of the things that Think Productive talk about and support people within a workplace setting, but transfer them into these new endeavors. So it's almost the end. We're just going to tie up the sort of domestic case and admin bits of the session, and then Grace and I'll hang around for Q&A. First thing, if you want to jot down our contact details there, Grace, can you put both of our emails into the chat as well? So we love to hear from you on the emails. You can stalk us both on LinkedIn, because that wasn't one of the things that went down last night. You can even find us on Twitter,
which also didn't go down yesterday.
Yeah. Grace and I would categorize as part-time tweeters, but we will see your interaction after a couple of days, and we would love to respond. Please do reach out to us, particularly if you want more. Either you'd want to know a little bit more about this session, or you want to know a little bit more about what Think Productive do in general. As well as on the email, there's all the other ways that you can get in contact with us as well. all of which are working today compared to last night. I'm conscious that there's a few people that might have been on this live session or perhaps are watching back the recording who are from a learning organization, from university, a college, a school. If you'd like to know a little bit more about how this session works in its full version, please reach out to either myself or Grace. Grace groupies are obviously going to go to Grace.
They might have switched. They might be Catley now.
If you want to reach out to me, we'll both be able to help you and hook you up with what you need. We'd be pleased to send you some evaluation copies of the Study Ninja book, and also to give you some VIP sort of behind the scenes access at some of the full materials that go with this commissioned version of the workshop as well. If you're sitting there thinking, but I'm not from a university, a college, or a school, or a business school, what have you got for me? Then we've got loads of stuff for you as well. You may well have been on some of our previous Ninja Skills session, of which this afternoon is part of the series, but they're all archived on the Think Productive YouTube channel. Just go to the Think Productive YouTube channel, look for the playlist which says Ninja Skills session, and you'll find stuff that we've been doing every month over the last year and a half. I haven't listed all of the topics there, but if you want to know a little bit more about our ninja style approach to email or meetings, workplace culture, things like the 4-day week. If you want to know more about Grace's amazing book, Struggle, it is amazing. It's on there behind. You can go and see the session that she did on that. We've talked about work from home, kindness at work, and all sorts of things around productivity and well-being as well. And as well as that back catalogue, we've got 2 coming up. Hayley, my colleague, was on the session before. She's doing a taster version of our in-house workshop, How to Delegate, coming up in November. And Grace, tell us a little bit about what avoiding the always on workplace culture is about.
So this is basically 5 questions that we can use to help ourselves individually, but also collectively, that we can start with our colleagues around how are we creating this always urgent workplace and how can we avoid it?
That sounds good to me. So head to the website if you want to sign up for either the free webinars, or indeed lots of our normal in-house sessions are available to yourselves as individuals as public workshops as well. So both of those websites there are on this page. If you could put them both in the chat as well, Grace, that would be fantastic. Anything else you want to know? We're wrapping up now with the formal part of the session. Please head to the Think Productive website. You can learn a lot more about who we help and how we do it. You can learn all about the different productivity and well-being offers that we can bring into your workplace. And of course, you can learn an awful lot more about the full version of the Study Ninja workshop as well.
And by the way, for those of you who are like, there's lots of stuff in the chat, how do I save it all? You can save the chat file. So if you go to the 3 dots next to where you can pop in things on the chat, you can actually click on that and save chat, and that will give you everything that's in the chat.
Fantastic. So thank you very much. We're on a 90-second overrun, which I hope you will forgive me for. That is the formal part of the workshop concluded. If you need to rush off for an important appointment with your kettle or your cat, you are very welcome to do so. If not, Grace and I will go into slightly more relaxed after show mode. Very happy to receive questions in the Q&A, in the chat, or indeed, if you're feeling very bold, you have the opportunity to come in on voice. You just need to raise your hands and Grace will do some super unmuting as well. So while we wait to see if there's any of that, any other final thoughts about Study Ninja, Grace?
Yeah, I think for those of you who are familiar with the productivity ninja characteristics, some of it might be like, oh yeah, I know all that already. But sometimes when we go into a different setting, we forget to reapply them. So yeah, we might be just tweaking things slightly. Particularly, I think that whole physical or digital zone of focus. Because I think particularly if you're studying part-time, you almost don't have the luxury of, I remember when I was studying, it was, full-time student, you're on campus, you're surrounded, you're in that kind of space of study, aren't you? As well as social life and everything else going on. But
that was where my first jaunt into higher education went wrong.
But like, you kind of know, if you're on campus, you can go to the library, you can create those, you can find those zones very easily. Whereas if you're studying from home or part-time, sometimes we don't have that obvious space to study. So sometimes we need to either recreate it or create it creatively, whether that's with how you lay out your desk or like what music you put on in the background or that kind of thing.
Top Spotify playlists for cranking out that essay, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you're right. The 7 of the ninjas are the same as in our workplace offering. But you and I both know if you can be doing those normal 9 ninjas in different kinds of company or organization, different professions, just with different people, and like how they're going to work with them will be very different. And then I definitely know from when I was doing my teacher training, there were the skills I developed that had made me successful in the workplace, and they either didn't work in study or they needed to be done in a different way. So yeah, adapting your ninja practice, even if you're a substantially trained productivity ninja, to this new adventure is kind of what Study Ninja is about. And then again, if you're still watching it because you're thinking, how could this work in my institution? There might be somebody who for this workshop would be like the first and only time they've worked with us. So we'd be bringing, a kit bag of skills and mindsets, particularly to that study kind of context. And then also like thinking about how it might complement what you're already doing in your own learning organization. So you might already have study skills workshops, you might have stuff on note taking or essay planning, or, doing a class presentation or whatever it is. I think what we can do is take some of this ninjery and sit it alongside and around that. And, I mentioned that was the bit that was missing for me the first time I tried higher education. I had the same kind of, mind and brain, and I think I had the same academic potential, but I just wasn't able to manage the lifestyle that needed to go around a successful piece of study. And, 21-year-old me would have loved some of this stuff, could have benefited from understanding the importance of balance and ruthlessness and stealth and camouflage as well.
Yeah, and I think the whole work and boss concept, so boss versus worker, I think is another one, particularly for me when I went into education. So I was always this sort of straight A student, academically pretty strong. But as you go through, as you go deeper into study, there's a lot more of that boss mode thinking that we need to do, of deciding where am I going with this, and kind of the self-direction side of things. And so for me, having been really good at being doing what I'm told, basically, that was the bit that I struggled with, was actually starting to do some of that boss mode thinking rather than just being the worker mode, waiting for someone else to give me instructions.
Because sometimes you're the person who has to decide what's going on. So if you're doing a dissertation or a piece of independent research, or you're doing an individual project or a group project, the kind of study that people might come to for this, like, it isn't just here's the syllabus, learn and understand this, be prepared to digest it in your test. HE level study is a little bit different than that, and it does require that kind of boss mode thinking. I think even sixth form, we've done this workshop with and for sixth formers, and we think it definitely would help people kind of making that move from the sort of GCSE level to baccalaureate or A level, kind of where you have a little bit more discretion and control and responsibility for your own learning as well. Thank you, Lucy, for your comments. Take some of your existing ninja skills and apply them in this universe as well. And Joanna, also a fan of the Pomodoro technique as well. But it's brilliant as a study thing. I'm going to spend 25 minutes creating the outline for this assignment. I've got 25 minutes to read chapter 4, or whatever it is that you want to apply it to as well.
It's a good way of limiting research as well. The sort of thing where I could spend all day on this. But am I going to, or do I need to ring fence it?
Definitely. And it goes back to what we're talking about. Balance is, some of the ways balance can go wrong is either having the wrong components in your balance kind of collection, but doing too much of one or not enough of the other. So getting the right kind of stuff is good there. So I'm noticing it's 7 minutes to 3. I don't have my hard out till 3 o'clock, when I need to be able to answer the doorbell for the 12-year-old coming home. But if there is anything else you'd like Grace and I to comment on or ask on while I slurp out of my branded Productivity Ninja mug. I don't think you can even get these anymore, can you, Grace?
No, I think they're very limited.
Then drop them in the chat or raise your hand. If not, I think we might sign this one off in a couple of minutes.
Yeah. But loving what you've shared so far on the chat as well. Do keep in touch and let us know how you get on. Definitely you've got both Lee and I's, Lee and mine.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it matters.
You've got our email addresses. So do keep in touch, let us know how you get on. And Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to close this one down. So if you've been watching this on the YouTubes, either because you enjoyed the live session so much, you came back and you wanted to watch it again, or if you are just consuming this one as a recording, same offer to reach out to us, Lee, LWE at thinkproductive.co.uk, or Grace, Grace at thinkproductive.co.uk, or head to the website and we'll see you there and love to continue the conversation. Other than that, thank you very much, everybody, and have a great rest of the afternoon. Ninjas out in 3, 2, 1.